All right, my friends. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of America. The scorching, scalding, simmering fruited plains of America. All across America. And it looks like the tubes are connected. That is tremendous. Looks like we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about the Trump prosecution, a whistleblower who's exposing the Biden crime family, Dr. Luft, and cocaine in the White House, or what many are now calling the crack house that the Biden administration is in charge of. And so we've got 4 segments we're going to walk through today. The first one is going to be an update on the Trump prosecution. Remember that Trump called Special Counsel Jack Smith a crackhead in light of this cocaine debacle, wondering if crackhead prosecutor Jack Smith may have brought some of his crack cocaine into the crack-infested White House. So we'll talk about that. But they're not taking that comment lightly. They're turning it into a big possible threat. In fact, they're saying that the FBI is now investigating threats against prosecutors, and that the prosecutors who are prosecuting Trump may need extra security, and that they may need to have their names sealed and all protected and buried because of the dangerous insurrectionists. And this is on the prosecution that is surrounding January 6th. We have this clip from this former prosecutor. She's out saying, or she's an extremist expert or whatever. They're saying that the threats are ramping up. And so they're going to need to censor us harder and maybe arrest more people. So we also have new news that one of the subpoenas that came out from Jack Smith's office went out to Kelli Ward here in Arizona. You're familiar with her from some of the efforts back during the 2020 election. Got a subpoena. We'll talk about that story. We also know today in the Trump prosecution, there was an update that an appeal that Trump's team was working on to keep Mike Pence's testimony from being included in the investigation has been dismissed. And this has been a real difficult thing to follow because all of this has been taking place under seal. It's been extremely frustrating. And we're just getting bits and pieces as they get leaked out to the media. And so Bloomberg has an update on that. And so we know this J6 investigation is coming in hot. Mike Pence was asked directly about January 6th, and he talked with special counsel. And this is a precarious position, right? Because Mike Pence was an inside player on this whole day. And now he's got a real strong interest, a little bit of a conflict of interest in providing testimony against the person he's running against, who happens to be way ahead of him in the polls. So we're asking ourselves, what does that testimony look like? He talks a little bit about it and explains his position on some January 6 issues today. Also, a very interesting thing came out. I was thinking about this. We talked about this on our members-only locals and YouTube members stream this morning about the costs and the efforts that are going into both special counsels. You know, Joe Biden has a special counsel who is investigating him. I think he's investigating him. He might be reading the paper on the beach somewhere. I don't know. But the numbers don't really support an equal investigation into both individuals. Trump had classified documents. Biden had classified documents. One of them, though, is being dropped, spending about $1 million a month. The other, not so much. I guess you can figure out who is actually being prosecuted. Millions of dollars going after Trump, not so much for Joe. And so we also have a Trump clip. He was over in Iowa. He's going to be really hammering Biden on the trail. The question is going to be, are they going to talk about it in the media? So we'll go through all of that. Then this was a wild video. If you have not watched this yet, certainly stick around with us. And if you can't stick around, make sure you come back and watch this. This is from Dr. Luft. And this is a whistleblower who is going to be speaking from Israel, I think is where he's actually stationed. And he is under suspicion of criminality from the Biden DOJ. And as he explains it, it's amazing. But his criminality started to be alleged against him after he blew the whistle on the Biden crime family. And he's got all sorts of evidence. He walks us through it bit by bit, a very credible person saying that there were actual people at the DOJ and the FBI who were covering all of this up on behalf of the Biden crime family. In other words, he blew the whistle, they prosecuted him, and they covered it up. And he names names, and he lists some of them here. And so we're going to turn it over to Congress and see if they're going to go hard after those individuals. But this guy's credible. He said he was arrested in Cyprus on a politically motivated extradition request. He's been somebody who's worked in the global security space for a very long time, even testified in front of Congress. And we'll hear from him today. Released a video because he's freaked out. Come back to the United States, they'll prosecute you, and you can't even offer a defense that uses the word Biden in it because they're just going to say it's too political and irrelevant. He'll explain. All very important stuff, so we'll go into that. Then we're going to turn our attention to what the heck is going on in the crack house, White House. And it's a very simple thing. We talked about this yesterday. Why can't they just come out and confirm for us that the crack cocaine, the cocaine dime bag, didn't belong to Hunter or Joe or Jill or one of the little cousins or whatever? Very simple. Yesterday, they couldn't do it. We listened to Andrew Bates, this guy, the deputy press secretary, during a gaggle on board Air Force One. And the audio recording was very brief. And in fact, he didn't want to talk about it because of the Hatch Act. Now, he got skewered over that, rightfully so, because what kind of excuse is that? And Karine came out today and literally scolded the media, said this is irresponsible reporting. How dare you ask us point blank whether it belonged to Hunter or Joe or a Biden family member? It's irresponsible. We've already answered this. And then she gives us an answer. And I was going to tease you on it, but I'll tell you this. Here, fast forward. She doesn't actually answer it. I know you're shocked. I know you're jumping out of your chairs. You're kidding, Rob. Really? No, she doesn't answer it. But she tried to be sneaky about this one, and she got busted because she actually lied again. She said that the president wasn't there on Friday. Turns out they were. The press pool reported that they were there on Friday. And so she said they were not there on Friday, so it can't possibly be theirs. Well, it turns out they were there on Friday, so liar Karine strikes again. Now, there was a new report that when it comes to the conflict of interest questions or any questions that go into the Biden crime family, she's only answering 2% of them, right? 2% of them. Fun report over from Fox News. Then we'll turn our attention over to Jake Sullivan as part of the same segment. He's explaining that they actually do have a very serious drug policy. A lot of workers doing construction over there, kind of implying might be those coke-addled construction workers at the White House. All right. We have Dan Bongino, who is a former Secret Service agent, who has a take on this. And then I want to revisit this Res Ipsa Loquitur, this Res Ipsa Lock conversation that we had yesterday. We also have James Comer, who's a representative, sent a letter over to the Secret Service demanding answers on this. And Pandora's box is going to be open, I think, on this one, because they are stepping in it. There's lies everywhere we turn. Then we're going to wrap up with a recap on what's going on in Missouri versus Biden. We had a huge victory that we talked about. The judge issued on July 4th a whopper of an opinion, recertifying the First Amendment, confirming that it still reigns supreme in this country, chronicling all of the big tech censorship that every single disgusting entity in our federal government was involved in. CDC, FBI, DOJ, all of them. Censoring directly out of the White House with Rob Flaherty and others at the FBI, putting pressure on big tech. So the judge said, you got to stop that. Well, meetings started to get canceled. The State Department canceled their weekly censorship meeting with these big tech platforms, and they're freaked out about this, man. They're like, wait, we've got another election coming up. There could be dangerous Russian misinformation, and Trump might win. So they've got to, get their meetings back on schedule. And so they filed a request that the judge's order be stayed. All right. The judge issued an order in Missouri and said, you guys are done. Biden, you are prohibited. And everybody that was listed in there, and we went through the order in full, you cannot have these meetings. You cannot censor political speech. You're done. So the government, the censors, are asking for a stay on that order. They're saying, well, we're going to appeal this, so can we please keep censoring while the appeal is pending? because we know the appeal will take forever and we'd love to continue to censor for the next 18 months right through the election. All right. And so, my friends, it's a beautiful Friday. It's been a busy, lovely week, and we've got a lot to attend to, and we'd love it if you joined us at our community to be a part of the show. This morning, we had a members-only stream where we talked about a couple of additional things. We talked about the Musk versus Zuckerberg saga. These two might be battling it out in the Colosseum in Rome someday, but for now, they're going to be in the court of law, potentially. We read through the letter. We talked about the new Threads censorship platform that's now out there. We also had a fun conversation about what's going on with this self-segregation that's happening in America. The blues are going to live with the blues. The reds are going to go live with the reds. And there are major demographic shifts. So we have this sort of separate two-tier thing going on. In the physical world, in the world of atoms, we have people moving and self-sorting. And then in the world of bits, in the digital world of bits, we have people sorting themselves into platforms as well. And that atoms versus bits metaphor comes from Peter Thiel. So you see, that's what we talked about this morning on our members-only stream, and we'd love it if you joined us. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to go. We also did a Trump docket update. We check in with everybody on our YouTube membership, our private Telegram group for our members, and we say what's up to our friends on Locals. We'd love it if you join us. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com, my friends. Come and say hello. We also, before we get into the meat and potatoes, we got to eat our greens, get fortified, get nutrified with our friends at fieldofgreens.com, because we all would like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds, wouldn't we? But how sick are you of all these ads for weight loss pills and fad diets? You know, we've all been there. We've all done that, and they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every single day. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall off, just like, whoo. But vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? It's a lot of peeling and scraping and washing and drying. It's a lot. Don't worry about it. Get Field of Greens, my friends. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. We know that proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you are going to look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor takes one look at you and says, whoa, woo, you're looking amazing. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com, load up your cart, load it up, baby, and save 15% off with code Robert at checkout. That's how you'll save. Robert at checkout. And remember, the vegetables really want to be eaten. You don't even have to feel bad about it. I mean, they burst out of the ground. They're like, eat me, eat me. Look how colorful and happy and dancing they are. And eventually, you're going to be bursting with green energy, the good kind, not the bad kind. So check it out, fieldofgreens.com. And don't forget to use code Robert when you check out. All right, and so let's get into business, my friends, and let me make sure that we're alive and well over in the house. It looks like we're good to go. So, starting out the day, the FBI is now investigating Donald Trump's crackhead comment, or at least some of the consequences of that comment, according to them. Every time Trump says something, the usual suspects in the media, they all come out and say, oh my gosh, he's inciting violence. There's going to be murders and everybody's going to die because Trump posted a Truth Social. Well, we've already covered what the post was in relation to, but remember Jack Smith, the special counsel, he is prosecuting Trump, and there was a neat little incident where there was a dime bag of cocaine discovered at the White House, and so Trump has some fun with this. He posts on Truth Social. He said, does anybody really believe that the cocaine found in the West Wing of the White House, you know, very close to the Oval Office, which they lied about where it was, by the way, is for the use of anyone other than Hunter and Joe Biden? But watch, the fake news media will start soon saying that the amount found was, quote, very small, and it wasn't really cocaine, but rather some common ground-up aspirin, and the story will vanish. Has deranged Jack Smith, the special counsel, the crazy Trump-hating prosecutor, been seen in the area of the cocaine? He looks like a crackhead to me. And so that's a very colorful statement from Donald Trump. And that agitated a bunch of people. We saw other clips from Jake Tapper and Chris Christie. They were hyperventilating over this. Jake Tapper, can they arrest him kind of for this? Can they ban him from Truth Social or something? Is there anything that can be done, is what he was asking. And Christie said, no, not really. I mean, in general, it's not a good idea to call your prosecutor a crackhead. It's not a good strategy in general. For people who are not running for president named Trump, if you're being prosecuted with a crime, consult your attorney before calling the prosecutor names or crackhead. It's just generally a good thing to do. But that being said, this is not the ordinary course of events. We are in a new type of criminality. We have the first time ever in American history. We're living through historical times, my friends, where we have a prosecutor prosecuting on behalf of the power in charge, Joe Biden, his political opponent in America. First time ever it's happened, and here we are. So Trump is playing in two arenas, the court of law and the court of public opinion. And when he makes comments like that, people lose their minds. Here is what the Washington Post says. Prosecutors in Trump classified documents case are facing threats. Woo! FBI says now it's working with partner agencies to assess and respond to threats as the prosecution moves forward. And they really get agitated about this stuff. And let's see if we can fix what's happening here. They say individual prosecutors involved in the classified documents case are facing substantial harassment and threats online and elsewhere. Now, we've been pretty hard on these people. We've been calling out their ethical problems, their conflicts of interest. And, you know, we didn't point out that maybe there is a possibility that they are crackheads. I mean, we don't know where their whereabouts were in the White House. And we also know that Chris Christie even told Jake Tapper that crackheads come in many different shapes and sizes. And we don't know exactly what they look like. So really, Chris Christie's a longtime prosecutor. He's got a lot of experience in this. So we're just trusting him at his word. So they have not proven that in a court of law, to my knowledge, they have not proven in a court of law that Jack Smith is not a crackhead. And at this stage, there has been found to have been illegal drugs called cocaine in the executive branch, which is what governs the DOJ. So they're going to have to support that one. But now they're facing extremism threats. And who is saying this? I wonder where this is coming from. Oh, look. Extremism experts. Oh, okay. They're going to be the ones who are sure about this. And a government official who's familiar with the matter. Wow. All right. Well, case closed, everybody. It's pretty much official. Donald Trump's responsible for online substantial harassment of Jack Smith because a government official familiar said so. Now, at the same time, two officials said federal agencies have not observed a general increase in threats against law enforcement in recent weeks, but there's a surge of violent rhetoric in the days after FBI agents searched and raided his home. The officials here spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive security issues. The FBI has called threats against law enforcement reprehensible and dangerous. Yeah, I agree. I think all threats against law enforcement are ill-advised and illegal. You should not be threatening anybody ever, really. I mean, you really shouldn't be threatening people, right? It is illegal in almost most contexts to make a volitional threat. So be very careful about it, especially with law enforcement. If you accidentally open a door and a strong breeze brushes past a law enforcement FBI agent, felony assault, arrest him. So be very cautious about it. But that's not what we're talking about, okay? They do this bait and switch thing. They say, we're receiving threats against law enforcement. Are you sure they're really threats, or are they just people asking questions about why Jay Bratt, a prosecutor with the DOJ, may have improperly threatened Walt Nauda's lawyer during an interview when he was trying to turn his client? Maybe that's the thing that we're talking about. Maybe we're talking about weird relationships between Louis Freeh and the Biden crime family. And Louis Freeh used to work at the FBI, and he employed one of the prosecutors, David, on the case. Is that the type of conversation you're talking about? Because we know Other incidents that involve the FBI investigating criminality in this country are nuts. They're not legitimate at all. They were creating threats in the Governor Whitmer plot. They were manufacturing threats in the Proud Boys trial. These were people in many of these instances that were talking trash to each other in text message and Telegram groups that they metamorphed into an insurrection. So we already know they put pressure on big tech, and now they're going to be using these statements to go after other people. Now, they're referring to experts in political extremism. Amazing. I wonder who these people are. Highly credentialed experts in extremism. They say organized threats of violence against government institutions are generally down since January 6th. Well, I mean, the FBI is probably taking a break. They have to catch their breath again before they start back up before the next election. Then they'll be back up again. So in part because people have realized they could face legal consequences. Now, still, experts say that they frequently observe violent rhetoric targeting people who are blamed for undermining the former president. Far-right Trump supporters are posting names of prosecutors and government workers online. They're already online. They're part of public filings. They're in every single document that we are covering here. They're in literally like public record and in news articles. So you see what they're trying to do is smear and castigate all even coverage of these people. Now, again, nobody wants them threatened and nobody even wants them doxxed. I don't endorse any of that, but we're allowed to have conversations about these people and their professional involvement and ethical conflicts. At the Justice Department, officials have responded by trying to look, this is what's going to happen. They're going to try to keep the names of the prosecutors and the agents working on the Trump cases from becoming public, all right? They're going to cover up their fake illegal prosecution that they have created in order to remove a political opponent. They want to keep the names silent and the agents silent. They want everything under seal so we can't even see who the investigators are. We want to watch the watchers. We want to watch the people who are doing the investigations, but they have corrupt influences. We're already seeing the relationships between David and Louis Frey and others like Jay Bratt, and we're starting to piece together this disgusting affair. So they've got to shut everybody up and silence the names from even coming out lest we connect the dots. They don't want them public. They don't want them involved in congressional hearings, and they want less formal conversations about the case. Stop talking about it. You can only hear what we leak to the Washington Post or the New York Times. Now, they say that's a tricky task given the prosecutors' names are listed in public court filings. No kidding. And their names and information about witnesses are accessible to Trump as a defendant for now. I mean, and barely. Trump also has a limitation, a protective order on this case. So he can't even take his notes about the police report home with him. And I didn't say he can't take the police report home with him. He can't take his notes about the police report home with him. He's got to leave that back in his attorney's office. Insane, all right, because it's Trump and it's classified documents and all the things. Now, they're saying the former president has written social media posts directly attacking people investigating him, including Jack Smith. Yeah, by calling him a crackhead and other things. So is Trump allowed to criticize now? Do you want to silence his free speech too? You want to shut him up and gag orders so that he can't respond to this? Only Jack Smith, with the power of the media, can talk about the case. Jack Smith won't ever come out and actually communicate anything to the public, but he'll just have his underlings at the DOJ leak, dump all this stuff out into the public. And then they'll craft the narrative. What do you think the Washington Post is doing right now? And they're warning people, don't talk badly about Jack Smith. Don't criticize our prosecutors. Don't put these documents on the screen. Don't share their names. Don't imply that they might be corrupt, lest there be consequences for you. The DOJ and the FBI have also faced criticism from some Republican members of Congress who are demanding accountability. And they decry these investigations as partisan. No kidding. So you see, it's pretty disgusting what they're trying to do. And when we dig into it, we know that they're driving this home. And I think, my friends, I keep saying this, and I know it sounds insane, but remember that when Donald Trump gets indicted for the January 6th stuff, they're going to say he's going to do this again. They're going to say he's running for office again, he's going to lose again, and he's going to contest the election again, and he's going to insurrect again. And he's got no trust or faith in the judicial process or the court of law. He's criticizing everybody. He's criticizing judges and prosecutors. And the only thing that we can do to protect the safety of America is to keep him in custody or to severely limit his accessibility to the documents or to his defense or to his travel. And then you wake up one day and we have the same situation that's happening in Brazil, where their courts and their government just says, well, we don't really like this candidate, so you're not running anymore. The Democrats tell us this is all what we expect in a democracy, an enlightened democracy, while they're trying to imprison and silence everybody who challenges them.
Prosecutors are getting threats around this case as well, Barb. The Washington Post reports some of the prosecutors involved in this classified documents case against former President Trump are facing harassment, threats online and elsewhere. It's according to extremism experts and a government official familiar with the matter talking to the Post. The FBI says it is working with partner agencies to assess and respond to the threats as the classified documents case moves forward. DOJ officials have also responded by trying to keep the names of prosecutors and agents working on the Trump cases from becoming public in official documents, congressional hearings, and even in less formal conversations about the case. Two officials tell the Post federal agencies have not observed a general increase in threats against law enforcement overall in the weeks since Trump was indicted. That is a major contrast from a surge of reported violent rhetoric against FBI agents in the days following the search of Mar-a-Lago last August. So, Barb, as a former prosecutor yourself, how common is this stuff? How seriously do you take it? And obviously, this all comes from the top. Donald Trump calling into question everything about this case, saying it's a witch hunt, painting himself as a martyr. How did you as a prosecutor handle this, and how does DOJ handle it now?
This is not normal. From time to time, prosecutors do get death threats. It may be based on someone that they're prosecuting. But I think we've reached a whole different era when we're sort of crowdsourcing these sort of threats. Anytime former President Donald Trump says these things about witch hunts and hoaxes, calling for the defunding of DOJ.
Witch hunts and hoaxes, calling for the defunding of DOJ, which is a perfectly legitimate policy position, by the way. It's not a bad idea. Same thing with the FBI, CIA, and others.
There is the risk that someone out there is going to hear that and take matters into their own hands and go after these career prosecutors. I've had threats. Others have had threats. The way it's usually handled is the U.S. Marshal Service can provide protection.
I don't have that.
Including 24/7 protection. But
yeah. Defense attorneys don't get that, right? People who aren't a part of the government Gestapo, they don't get that. We get threats all the time. Not a big deal, though, because it's just par for the course. It comes with the territory. But they will charge you with a felony. In many places, even a small threat, even a text message, even a voicemail, even anything that's not serious. You can make a phone call or a text when you're drunk and send a message to a government official. It'll be a gigantic problem for you. They'll raid your house and take it extremely seriously. But you do that to a defense attorney, it's like, come on. You know, it's like, did anybody show up with a gun? No? All right, you're fine then. So these people are giant babies. They just cry all the time. Donald Trump posts a mean truth, like, oh, we're all going to die. Why? Did somebody cut you off on the way home? Give me a break. Put your grocery cart back, all right? The fact that somebody told you to do that doesn't mean that you got harassed, all right? Nobody's going to murder you in the grocery store.
It's very resource intensive. The prosecutors have better things to do than to be checking in with their security detail. And
yeah, like
they
prosecuting
have lives, they have children, they have errands to do in their personal lives. And so
so do all the defendants of your fake prosecutions.
This is a whole new day that if prosecutors have to think twice about whether they can just do their job safely.
It's so hard for the prosecutors, man. Life's so hard. And I want to reiterate, I want to be 100%, 1,000,000% clear. It is not a good idea to threaten anybody, really, for any reason at all. In any way, shape, or form. Threatening is just not a good thing in general. Very calm communication about, hey, we seem to have a breakdown here. It feels like we have a little bit of a disagreement, and hopefully we can rectify this, is a better approach, because any type of threat can be perceived problematically and it turns into a big deal. But this is not about threats, which everybody disavows. we all disavow threats, but it's always about chilling speech. And it's always about, you can see her frowny face. It's an end of an era. You know, it's a new era in America when Trump is leading this. And you can just see where this is going. It's going to lead into more gag orders, more threats, more circular, around and around we go. The same story, just different seasons.
And of course, we saw these kind of threats to secretaries of state, attorneys general, in the states where the election was in dispute and Donald Trump was pushing his law about them, his lies.
All right, so Trump's lies. Now, that's the extremist experts and former prosecutors. And so the case is going hard against Trump. I mean, January 6th, I think we're going to see an indictment. Bill Barr speculated this summer. I tend to agree with him. I think that they don't want to delay too much longer. And so we're asking ourselves, as the J6 investigation continues on, who else is involved in the case? We've got, this one is about Kelli Ward. And yesterday on the show, we talked about Speaker Rusty Bowers, who was interviewed. And he gave us a long, detailed interview. He sort of broke news with Caitlin Collins on CNN. And he explained that he was interviewed by Jack Smith for 4 hours in his office. And he gave him all sorts of details and walked through a bunch of different pieces of the conversation that they had together. We also know that Arizona also has Kelli Ward, and she was also involved, evidently. So we know that NBC News is reporting that Jack Smith subpoenaed the Secretary of State. Adrian Fontes, who is our current Secretary of State, said that Jack Smith wanted information about a pair of lawsuits that were brought. One of them was filed by former President Donald Trump's campaign. Trump filed a lawsuit here, and we covered a whole boatload of these lawsuits. I can't keep track of them at the moment, but we were covering them in different states. Another one was filed by Arizona Republican Party Chair Kelli Ward. So these were actual lawsuits that were filed, and they were claiming that they had evidence and that they needed to stop the certification and recount and set hearings to conduct signature checks and all of the things. And so Trump filed a lawsuit here. Kelli Ward filed another lawsuit. Jack Smith is sending subpoenas to everybody involved. Ward's lawsuit claimed that there were errors and fraud that it tainted 2020. So Jack Smith sent in a subpoena. He wanted documents related to communications with opposing attorneys, discovery, proposed exhibits. The subpoena was issued as recently as May. He said that another law firm representing the Secretary of State complied with his request, and another attorney declined to comment. Rusty Bowers, as we heard from, said that there's not much more he wants to talk about. And so our question, of course, is what are these people talking about? And are they going to reappear as witnesses in a trial? Because the election debate in 2020 was very extensive. Florida, by comparison, was just a simple one location, boxes, a set of documents, and that was the end of the story. But the extent to which there were different states and different people, different lawsuits filed was big. One party who was highly involved in all of this was Trump's vice president, Mike Pence. And there has been this battle going on behind the scenes about whether Mike Pence and his testimony can be used against Donald Trump. We know that Mike Pence has already been called in front of the special counsel and been asked to testify. He said he has testified, but Mike Pence was Donald Trump's vice president. And so we have this thing called executive privilege. And executive privilege is a concept that's supposed to protect people in the executive agency from being under threat all the time of revealing their conversations. And the reason we want that is so that we have some candor, so that we can have people in office speaking frankly with one another, communicating openly without having to carefully craft their words for fear of being under, court order or congressional subpoena or something. And that is a very powerful privilege. It's supposed to be similar to an attorney-client privilege. And we want to protect the sanctity of that relationship. Well, none of those privileges matter if your name is Donald Trump. They just throw them right into the garbage along with the rest of the Constitution. And they say that Mike Pence and Donald Trump, their relationship was one in which Trump was asking Pence to commit further crimes. And so that breaches the executive privilege because you can't ask for protection to cover and immunize you and create a force field around criminality. So this has been an appeal that's been going on for some time. Mike Pence has already testified. Trump's team has been really working to preclude that testimony to keep it out. And we know that those efforts today failed. Trump's lingering appeal over Pence's January 6th testimony has been dismissed. Pence appeared before a special grand jury this April, and Trump lawyers wanted to preclude that testimony. But a federal appeals court tossed out what remained of Donald Trump's unsuccessful legal fight to stop former vice president turned rival now, Mike Pence, from testifying about the efforts to overturn 2020. Now you can see this is a major conflict of interest here. Pence has absolute inside knowledge, sort of like a scorned lover, so to speak. They were in a very serious relationship. They got a divorce. Mike Pence is now running for the position that Donald Trump is running from. So he may have said a bunch of stuff that might have been self-serving to him and disadvantageous to Trump. A panel from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit issued a sealed order. And that's why we can't follow this stuff. Ugh! Everything is sealed. We can't see it. What are the arguments? What's the DOJ saying? What are Trump's lawyers saying? This is the prosecution of a former president and the number one leader currently in the Republican Party. What kind of democracy, what kind of judicial system is this where we're supposed to have accountability and transparency? And we can't even see what these arguments are about why they're going to breach executive privilege between Trump and the vice president, both of whom were elected by the people of America. It's bizarro land. They won't show us anything. And all of this is still sealed. Coming out of the DC circuit, all right? They're going to try to bury this stuff as deep as they possibly can. They don't want you to even know anything about the prosecutors or the executive privilege or the attorney-client privilege. Maybe they're not even going to tell us about the trial. We'll just wake up. We'll fast forward 2 weeks. Donald Trump will be in prison. They'll say, no, sorry, guilty. They'll go, what? Sorry. Joe Biden's your president again for 4 years. Eat it. The parties aren't named in the public docket. We can't see it. But Bloomberg previously confirmed the information about the litigation. We know that Pence testified before a grand jury in Washington in late April in the federal probe run by Jack Smith. Trump had failed to convince the D.C. court to stop it while they maintained executive privilege, challenged the subpoena. Trump didn't win in the initial order. All the briefs are sealed. We can't see anything, but the public docket shows that after Pence appeared, the government asked the court to dismiss. Pence separately challenged the subpoena, so he fought it as well, but he didn't pursue an appeal. Judge Boasberg, as we read through in this filing recently, crapped all over executive privilege, and Trump's office did not comment. So Mike Pence has a very powerful position here. You know, if you're a defendant in a criminal investigation, you're concerned about what Mike Pence is saying, okay? Because he has access. He's got insider access. He's in the White House while all this happened. And he was the guy that they were relying on as the keystone, man. He was the decision man. He was going to go in there on that day, on January 6th, the fateful day, and make a decision. And so he's going to be one of the key witnesses in this case. And strangely, he's running against Donald Trump. What a weird coincidence that he might have a conflict like that. Pence gets asked about January 6th. Here's what he says.
Ma'am.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And you were commenting on the fact that all of these problems belong to Joe Biden, and they do. However, if it wasn't for your vote, we would not have Joe Biden in the White House.
Right.
Joe Biden shouldn't be there. And all those wonderful things that you and Trump were doing together would be continuing, and this country would be on the right path. Do you ever second guess yourself? That was a constitutional right that you had to send those votes back to the states. It was not like you were going to personally elect him. We all know by the number of votes that were there who won that election.
Well, let me speak to that issue.
History for this country.
Yeah, let me speak to the issue, because I think it's an issue that continues to be misunderstood, but I know by God's grace I did exactly what the Constitution of the United States required of me that day. And I kept my oath. But let me be very respectful of the question and tell you, look, states conduct our elections. You never want to let Washington, D.C. run elections. And you certainly would never want one person in Washington, D.C. to decide who the President of the United States is going to be.
I don't think that's what she said, though. Yeah, that's not.
Ma'am, let me explain.
Yeah, so somebody else over here says that's not what she said, though, buddy boy. She said send it back to the states.
It to you. States conduct elections. Iowa, where I live in Indiana. And after there were questions in a half a dozen or so states, we had reviews of the results, 60 different lawsuits that went to the courts. Where there are questions, there's two ways that they're reviewed. Number one is you take those issues to the legal process in the state for recounts, okay? Secondly, you take them to the courts, which we did very aggressively. Now, there were voting irregularities that took place. You had a half a dozen states that changed the rules in the name of COVID, but...
Yeah, we covered all those. Those were major changes. And those changes, arguably, were unconstitutional because they were done by the courts and they were done by the secretaries of state, not by the legislatures. The legislatures govern elections, not judges who say, oh, my COVID, oh. Or the election SOSs, secretaries of states, who say we have urgency emergencies. Everybody gets a mail-in ballot. We waive signature requirements. You get extra days to vote. All of that was pending. And so when that constitutional framework gets usurped, that's why people have problems with it. And that's what they were asking for.
Held those changes in virtually every instance, and in every instance where they would have had any impact whatsoever. At the end of the day, when Iowa certified your results and sent them to Washington, D.C., when Indiana certified our results, the Constitution of the United States in Article 2 says the job of the Vice President is to serve as the presiding officer of a joint session where you open and count the votes. Don't take my word for it. Go read the Constitution. Not really. I say this with great affection and respect. The Constitution is very clear. My job was to oversee a session of Congress where objections could be heard, and I made sure that objections would be recognized. So we would hear whatever evidence or whether debate there was, but the Constitution says you open and count the votes, no more, no less. The Constitution affords no authority for the Vice President or anyone else to reject votes or return votes to the states. Never been done before, should never be done in the future.
It had never been done.
That's actually what the Constitution says. No Vice President in American history ever asserted the authority that you have been convinced that I had.
Okay, so now, I actually think that you can read the text that way. Okay, I think you can read the text that way. You can read it the other way. In other words, there is ambiguity there, which is why he defaults back to the nobody has ever done it that way before. Now, we know that when we spent a lot of time on this, we pulled up the Congressional Research Service documents. We read through this with a fine-tooth comb, and we played both sides of the argument, and we said, can Pence do this? Can he not do it? And he went with the standard precedent and the standard protocol. But that doesn't mean that he had to do it that way. And there is ambiguity there. That's why Congress is talking about reforming that provision. I mean, they're actually talking about modifying the Electoral Count Act because it is confusing and because you can make arguments like that. And so what my point is that making that argument, asking Mike Pence to do that, is not illegal. He could have theoretically done it the other way. It may have been ill-advised. It may have been something you disagree with. It may have been something that is, has never been done before. Wow, it's never been done before. You mean like prosecuting a president? Yeah. So they can break precedent, but Pence can't. But my point is, there's stuff that happens in this country that has never been done before. That alone doesn't make it illegal. That doesn't make it something that Mike Pence is prohibited from doing. He just didn't do it. He's trying to defer away his capability to immunize himself from the responsibility of having to make a decision. He said, no, I have no ability to do that. And I understand how you could read it that way. But Trump didn't read it that way. And the fact that he asked Pence to do it is not a crime. Jack Smith, I fully believe, is going to disagree with that and charge accordingly.
And I want to tell you, with all due respect, I said when I announced, President Trump was wrong about my authority that day, and he's still wrong. I believe it with all my heart.
Not much applause on that one.
That being said, I am encouraged by the fact that states around the country have been passing changes in election laws at the state level that are protecting the integrity of the vote. I frankly think we ought to have voter ID in every state in this country. I really do. But at the end of the day, I will also say to you that while I believe by God's grace that I did my duty that day, I do. No second guessing. I really think that this election has got to be about the future.
That's rough.
If we spend the next election talking about the past, you're going to get 4 more years of Democrats in the White House. Our candidates that spent the 22 midterm elections talking about relitigating the last election.
All right, so it's kind of a rough go there. Yeah, that one guy was clapping. He shut that up real fast, didn't he?
Exactly what the Constitution of the United States required of me that day.
Yeah, he claps right there. Watch.
And I kept my oath.
Oh, wait, no, that was a different one. All right, so you get the point. That's Mike Pence. And we also know that he has testified. And so what is that testimony going to look like? Time will tell. But there was another interesting little update on this. I was very much wondering that now that the prosecutions are working their way through the courts, how much money is being spent on all of this? And this dropped today from Kyle Cheney. He writes for Politico. He says, hey, check this out. We know that there are 2 special counsels working right now. We know Trump has his name is Jack Smith. We know that Joe Biden has his name is Robert Hur. Only one of them we really hear much about. That's Donald Trump's. Constant leaks to the media, constant updates from Mika Scarborough and others. And they're always getting drip, drip, drip from the DOJ. But we know Joe Biden has another classified documents problem, one that arguably is much more severe than Trump's, because Trump was at least the president and he has Article 2 power over those documents. And so why are we not focusing so much on her, who is the sitting president, by the way, investigating the sitting president for the same types of crimes Trump is allegedly responsible for, being in possession of defense information? So how much money is going to each? How much is in the Trump prosecution bucket versus the Biden? What would you guess? Well, I don't know. The same, you've got 2 special counsel children. Both of them go to mom and dad and say, hey, I have to prosecute somebody. Can I get some allowance from you? You give them the same amount, right? Here's what we've got. Jack Smith's numbers are on the left. You see here, expenditures from November through March. Personnel, $2.6 million. So that's November, December, January, February, March. So that's about 5 months, 4 months, 4.5 months, 18th to the 31st. $2.6 million. When you add it all up, when you throw in travel, rent, printing, contracts, supplies, acquisition, $5.4 million. That is prosecuting Donald Trump. That's from the special counsel's office. So you would imagine that that amount of money is also being used for Robert Hur. All this taxpayer dollars, $5.4 million. That's a lot. How much do you think they spent for Biden? Well, here you go. $615,000. What a joke. That's like lunch for the feds, you know? So, all right, personnel, $346,000. Statement of expenditures. That's like what? 2 lawyers, maybe? Like 2 lawyers? Statement of wait a minute. Is this for the same time period? Also through March. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, so that's all right. So that's the same. So it's about, all right, so this is about $1 million a month. That's about $1 million a month. Okay, for Jack Smith. Over that. And this is a little over 100,000 a month. If it's the same time period. Somebody fact check me on that math, but I think it's a whole different zero. 100,000 a month for Joe and $1 million a month plus probably 1.2, whatever it is. 5.4 over this time frame versus 600,000 over the same time frame. What a joke. So that's what it looks like, right? And so it's almost like they're not even trying because they're not. Isn't that amazing? So here is Donald Trump. He explains what a corrupt joke this is. Everything from top to bottom. The DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, they're all covering up Joe Biden's crimes. Now you've got the Secret Service involved and most of the media. And we've got tons of evidence that the Biden crime family is involved in nefarious activities all throughout the globe. Meanwhile, they're prosecuting Trump.
We have a corrupt media. No, think of it. They have absolute proof that Biden's being paid off by China, Ukraine, and many other countries. And the press doesn't even write about it. That would have been 10 years ago. That would have been the biggest story in history. It's 100 times bigger than Watergate. That would have been the biggest, and they don't even put it on the news. They don't. You look, if there's anything, you know, they feel guilty because they have the biggest story in history, and they are cowards. They're corrupt.
They are corrupt. They won't even talk about it. They're trying to censor everybody, and they are using the DOJ to prosecute their political enemies. And even when Trump posts a truth, we now know that that is going to activate all of those keyboard Waldo searching warriors at the FBI. Of course, we'll continue to cover these prosecutions, and thank you for subscribing and joining us as we do, my friends. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. And so let's turn our attention over to what's happening with the Biden crime family. A major whistleblower named Dr. Gal Luft now reveals himself, exposing the Biden crime family, and he releases a video message under threat of DOJ prosecution, the same DOJ that we've talked about here that is literally covering up for Joe Biden and the Biden crime family in collusion with the IRS and the FBI to keep them protected and out of touch of any political consequences while they instead prosecute their political opponents named Trump. We are going to go through this full statement from Dr. Gal Luft. But before we dig into it, I want to share with you a little bit of background because he goes fast and he talks about a lot of different things. First, he was in fact arrested. Now, he posted this tweet back on February 18, 2023. He says, "I've been arrested in Cyprus on a politically motivated extradition request by the United States." He's a researcher. He's somebody that's involved in global security conversations. We're going to go through his bio in a minute. But the U.S., the reason why he's posting this video from exile, essentially, is because the United States is prosecuting him, claiming that he's an arms dealer. He said it'd be funny if it weren't tragic. I've never been an arms dealer. DOJ is trying to bury me to protect Joe, Jim, and Hunter Biden. Back in February, he says, "Shall I name names?" Well, he did. We've got a bunch of names that he drops for us. We'll review them briefly. But first, let's take a look at his bio. This is over from the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security. They tell us this guy, Dr. Gal Luft, is a co-director for this agency. It's a Washington-based think tank. It's focused on energy security and economic trends. We're going to hear him talk about this. Writing papers, exchanging money with people, ghostwriting, thinking and writing about these types of topics. He is a senior advisor to the United States Energy Security Council, which is a cabinet-level Extra-Governmental Advisory Committee. He specializes in geopolitics, geoeconomics, energy security, Middle East, and U.S.-China relations. So he sounds like somebody who's got a lot of the qualifications that Hunter Biden pretends to have. Newsweek called him a tireless and independent advocate of energy security. Esquire included him in the list of the best and brightest. He's published numerous studies, co-author of all of these different pieces. Boom, 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 boom. Frequently in the media and advises various think tanks and so on. Went to Johns Hopkins, and you can see this is where he resides. We also know a little bit more about him. At some point, he testified in front of Congress. This is part of the testimony. This was back, I think, in 2004, some time ago, but he did speak in front of them, and it was on a panel about China's future energy development and their acquisition strategies. So he was there as the executive director for the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security. So he's very involved in this space. He's also going to mention this person, somebody named Patrick Ho. Patrick Ho is a person who was convicted of crimes, went to trial, goes by the name Chi Ping Patrick Ho. Different counts: conspiracy to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, domestic concerns, being involved in the Chad scheme and the Uganda scheme and these different countries' schemes. This is Patrick Ho. This is not Dr. Gal Luft, but he's going to mention Patrick Ho. And then he's going to drop a bunch of names. We'll come back and we'll check through some of those names, which I started to note down because he goes fast. But an amazing report, an absolute must watch and follow up, because this is going to open up the box upon which Congress can start inspecting. They will be able to get all of these names, issue their subpoenas, their requests for depositions, and go investigate this. And that's courtesy of Dr. Gal Luft, a brave whistleblower who is now speaking out.
Good day. My name is Dr. Gal Luft. For the past 20 years, I have been the co-director of the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, a Washington-based think tank focused on energy security. For the past 15 years, I've been a resident of Israel. And for 4 years, I was senior advisor to the China energy company CEFC, at the same time of its dealings with the Biden family.
CEFC was an energy conglomerate, and we actually saw the bank records that were payments from that entity through different, LLCs and shell corps.
Under normal circumstances, I would be testifying before Congress about my experience with CEFC. Sadly, due to circumstances I shall describe here in this video, I am forced to tell you this story via video. My ordeal goes back to a fatal decision I made in March of 2019 to share with the US government my knowledge about the Biden family's relations with CEFC. As I said, it was in March of 2019 in a 2-day session at the US Embassy in Brussels. I insisted that the meeting take place in March because at the time there were rumors that Joe Biden was planning to run for president. I saw it as my civic duty to alert the government beforehand and give it enough time to probe the issue. I want to be clear. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I have no political motive or agenda. I did it out of deep concern that if the Bidens were to come to power, the country would be facing the same traumatic Russia collusion scandal, only this time with China.
And only this time it's real. The Russian collusion scandal was a fake hoax perpetrated by the Democrats. This is actual criminality. Now, there was some minor Russian paying for ads and minor things, but it wasn't consequential. This is a whole different ballgame. This is documented and organized criminality, not by the Russians who are trying to interfere in an election, not with the help of Trump's campaign, but by themselves. This is an active conspiracy with a vice president who is now running for president. back in 2019.
Sad.
Trump was still there, but he was running for president. Let me just be clear on that timeline because I smashed a lot of thoughts together. Trump was in office. Biden was considering running for the 2020 election back in 2019.
Because of the DOJ's cover-up, this is exactly what happened. The DOJ sent to Brussels a delegation of 6 people, 2 prosecutors from the Southern District of New York by the names of Daniel Reichenthal and Catherine Ghosh.
Names!
And 4 FBI agents. One of them was Special Agent Joshua Wilson from the Baltimore field office, which also happens to cover the state of Delaware.
Names, FBI, DOJ.
Now you want to ask yourself, why did the government dispatch to Europe so many people? Why 6?
To cover it up.
2? The answer is that they knew very well that I'm a credible witness and that I have insider knowledge about the group and the individuals that enriched the Biden family. Over an intensive 2-day meeting, I shared my information about the Biden family's financial transactions with CFC, including specific dollar figures. I also provided the name of Rob Walker, who later became known as Hunter Biden's bagman. Yet, as we now know today from the whistleblower testimony, Gary Shapley, it took the DOJ a whole 21 months to probe the issue and to actually talk to Walker. But perhaps the most alarming information I revealed was of a mole within the DOJ who shared classified information with Hunter Biden and his Chinese partners. I told the DOJ that Hunter was closely associated with a very senior retired FBI official who had distinct physical characteristic. He had one eye. One of the FBI agents at the time even told me, you know, that would be very easy for us to find. There aren't that many one-eyed people in the Bureau. The information I provided the FBI in March of 2019 was fully corroborated 9 months later when the famous laptop belonging to Hunter Biden, which contained all the emails and receipts,
all the records corroborated,
was handed to the FBI. And guess who seized the laptop from the computer repair shop? It was Special Agent Joshua Wilson, who was with me in Brussels earlier.
Oh man. So, you know that he meets with these U.S. attorneys and sits with this guy, Joshua Wilson, tells him everything. Documents, Hunter's corrupt, James is corrupt, Biden's corrupt, CEFC, everything's transferring from the Chinese over to this shell company, over to this shell company, and it goes right into the bank accounts, and here's all the things you need. And they say, it's a very interesting story. We're going to have to investigate that, and thanks for your time. Guess what? 9 months later, Crackhead Hunter drops his laptop off. That gets turned over. The FBI picks it up. It matches everything he said, and we know the FBI knows about it because the guy who got the laptop is the same guy he met with to give the original information. So there is just no excuse at all. A whistle was blown. They corroborated it with Hunter's own laptop, and they still covered it up because that's why they were there. They weren't there to investigate anything. They were there to protect the Biden crime family.
In other words, the FBI knew about, from me, about the Biden CFC deals before they got hold of the laptop, way before. They had enough time to investigate the issue, but they didn't.
Or they did.
After Brussels,
and they did
I
nothing
never heard
with
back
it.
from the DOJ. But instead of showing appreciation for my whistleblowing, I became public enemy number 1.
Of course.
Over the past 4 years that followed, me, my family, my friends, my associates, we were all harassed, intimidated, and finally, I was prosecuted.
Sick.
Despite all that, on the eve of the 2020 elections, I sent my lawyer to Washington to meet with then acting Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Richard Donoghue, to ensure he was informed about the information I had given his department in Brussels 19 months earlier.
Going up the chain.
And also to warn him that there may still be a mole within the DOJ. Mr. Donoghue confirmed to my lawyer that he was aware of my claims, but now we learn from the IRS whistleblower that it was Rich Donoghue himself who suspended the investigation a few weeks earlier on September 4th, 2020.
Because the election's too soon.
On the grounds that it was, quote, too close to the elections. Finally, in February this year, I was arrested in Cyprus on an extradition request from the Southern District of New York, the very same office that met with me in Brussels.
Same office, same agency that is considering Trump's removal request for his Manhattan prosecution brought by Alvin Bragg, the same SDNY where Donald Trump lost his E. Jean Carroll case, which was being heard by a judge in that location. Very, very awful district for Trump, which is why it's all originating there.
The 7-count indictment said I violated the Arms Export Control Act.
Right.
And if I convicted, I would face up to 100 years in prison. While I was detained in Cyprus, I was portrayed in the international media as an arms dealer, even though I never traded a bullet in my entire life. In fact, nowhere in my indictment the DOJ claimed or presented evidence that I bought, sold, shipped, or financed any weapons. I was also charged with acting as an unregistered agent of CFC, which is a FARA violation. The DOJ says that I caused the payment of $6,000 a month to former CIA Director James Woolsey in order to put his name on an article I had ghostwritten for the China Daily newspaper.
So he says that the DOJ is alleging that he's paying some former CIA spook $6,000 a month to put his name on an article that I had ghost written. So that doesn't make any sense, right? Shouldn't that guy be paying him for the writing of the ghost article? He is spending money to write an article and then put somebody else's name on it? Is the allegation. It sort of feels backwards to me.
Nowhere in the indictment, the DOJ mentioned the well-known fact that Mr. Woolsey had been an advisor to my think tank since 2002, and that there was nothing in the article that represented Chinese interest. To the contrary, the notion that I, Gal Luft, spoon-fed a CIA director with policy proposals on China, treating him like a useful idiot, is not only an insult to the intelligence community, it is an insult to the intelligence of every American. The U.S. government...
So he's saying that he is paying to basically promote, the DOJ is saying, I see what they're saying, that the DOJ is paying him to promote fake stories. He's writing the story, and then he's using cover of a former CIA director to push his narratives under an official name. I see.
Claims that I acted on behalf of CFC, and therefore I'm a foreign agent. But let me tell you a little secret. The same CFC that the US government claims was associated with the Chinese intelligence and, quote, an international criminal organization, was a 501c3 charitable organization registered in the state of Virginia and approved by the IRS. The same organization was also a major donor to the Clinton Foundation and Columbia University. Needless to say that none of their executives were charged for any wrongdoing.
No, of course not. They're all protected.
If CFC was indeed a foreign entity tied so closely to the PRC, why was it allowed to operate freely as a public charity? Why did the government expose taxpayers to the risk of funding an entity it knew at the time was so compromised? Why did they not warn anybody? Isn't the role of government to protect its people?
Not anymore.
I'm also being charged for
Protect
making
themselves.
a false statement in Brussels.
False statements.
But why was I in Brussels to begin with? Was I there to eat Belgian waffles? The
Hopefully you
DOJ
had one.
charged me for making a statement in a voluntary meeting that would have never come to bear if not for my good citizenship.
So they're basically entrapping him. They're upset that he brought them to a meeting. They're saying, you gave false information. You lied to us about exposing the Biden crime family. We're going to charge you with a crime for that.
So let me propose an idea.
These people are sick.
Why won't the DOJ make my indictment public?
I'd love to see
Do
it.
it.
I looked for it.
Make my day. Put it on your website
I'd love, do it.
so that every American can see the nature of the allegations against me,
Let's see it.
the quality of the evidence, and the length the government is willing to go to weaponize the justice system to punish whistleblowers like me.
I tried to find his indictment, but he has not been arrested yet. So it's still sealed. So they will not unseal it until they get him in custody so that we can actually go through it. I'd love to see it. If he's such a monstrous criminal, he's now out there. We know where he is. He's in Israel is what he said. And so unseal it. He's giving you a threat, a demand. Why don't you publish it so that we can all read it and verify it for ourselves?
I have another idea. Why won't the FBI submit to Congress the minutes from the Brussels meeting?
Oh,
Let everybody see what happened in Brussels. Why not? Are you trying to protect anything? Are you trying to protect anybody?
those FD 1023s.
I also hope that the DOJ can explain why they targeted me in Cyprus and not in my home country of Israel, where I reside most of the time. After all, the US shares a bilateral extradition treaty with Israel. So if any of my crimes are real and serious, and this is not just political prosecution, why did the US need to sneak up on me during a short visit to Cyprus? Do they not trust the Israeli judicial system to judge this issue on its merits?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, why don't you go file your request for an arrest with Israel and see what they have to say about it? Oh, maybe because you know they would tell you to get bent. It doesn't comport with any system of justice.
Also, why did the DOJ wait 6 whole years, well beyond the statute of limitation, to indict me? And why did the DOJ choose to unseal the indictment on November 1st, 2022, the very same week of the midterm elections? Could this have anything to do with the fact or the fear that once Republicans gain control over Congress and begin to investigate, their cover-up would be in full display?
To shut him up
the biggest
before the
question of
midterms.
all, why am I being indicted for FARA, for ghostwriting an innocuous article for which I received no payment, let alone from a foreign government, when the mother of all FARA cases, the Biden systemic influence peddling on behalf of foreign governments for which they raked millions, goes unpunished? This is in a nutshell why I decided to act the way I did. Because I do not have faith that I would receive a fair trial in a New York court.
You would not.
Let me tell you why. CFC Secretary General Dr. Patrick Ho, who paid Hunter Biden $1 million for God knows what.
That's the conviction guilty form that we looked at the start of this segment.
Was not allowed to mention the word Biden before the jury when he was tried in New York in 2018. The very same prosecutor who is now after me, Daniel Reichenthal, told the judge at the time that mentioning the name Biden would, quote, add a political dimension to the case.
Illegal.
And the judge agreed.
Can't
Which
talk
means that if
about
I'm ever brought before a U.S. court, I would not be allowed to utter the word Brussels
Yep.
or Biden.
Hunter.
And the real context of my arrest, me being patient zero of the Biden family investigation, would be hidden from the jury. Let it sink in. I, who volunteered to inform the US government about potential security breach and about compromising information about a man vying to be the next president, am now being hunted by the very same people whom I informed and may have to live on the run for the rest of my life.
By our own government to protect the Bidens.
I warned the government about potential risk to the integrity of the 2020 elections. If convicted by a US court, would never be able to vote again in the US elections. Just think about it and ask yourself, who's the real criminal in this story? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Gal Luft, who is out there speaking out. Prayers for this man, my friends. He is blowing a whistle on one of the most corrupt criminal operations, maybe in the history of the world. I mean, they have seized control of the United States of America, and they are using the strong arm of the DOJ to prosecute people like this, who reach out in good faith, who decided to call the government in 2019 and say, hey, let's have a meeting here. I have some really troubling stuff to share with you about somebody who's got a real shot at the presidency. The crime family that was maybe in bed with the rest of the intelligence agencies. I mean, who knows how deep this goes or why they're all doing this. But they, instead of listening to him and prosecuting this like they would any regular criminal investigation, they turn the tables on him. They say, oh, you provided us false information. Oh, well, what are these transactions with this guy? What are those all about? And then they start to prosecute him because he knows too much. Now he's on the run. It is a shocking thing to think about this, you know, as somebody who cherishes justice and who wants so much better for our DOJ and our FBI, for them to be weaponizing their agencies to go after those who are exposing the real criminality in this country is just one of the most, it's a skin-crawling, disgusting thing that's happening. And this guy is, like you said, on the run. So incredible bravery, incredible strength. We're going to be sending love, energy, and strength to Dr. Gal Luft, wherever he is. Hopefully he is residing safely and soundly. Thank you, sir, for sharing this name, this message, and opening up this Pandora's box with all of these names in here, because there were a lot of them. And just a couple that we wrote down. The one-eyed hunter associate, the guy who was informing the Bidens. Well, I think we know that many people suspect that to be Louis Frey. Now, I don't think he's officially been identified yet, but he is the former he's the former FBI official who was on the transaction. He gave $100,000 to the Biden Charitable Trust for some stupid reason. They did a bunch of business together, so we know he's been named. We'll see if Congress goes after him. This was all taking place out of the Southern District of New York. We had this guy, Richard Donahue, apparently was suspended, or maybe was the acting AG, who was the person who called the lid on all of these investigations. He identified Joshua Wilson from the Baltimore field office, this same guy who met at Brussels and then also picked up the Hunter Biden laptop. Tons of questions for that guy. 2 prosecutors from the Southern District of New York, Catherine Ghosh, Daniel Rackenthal, and then we heard, of course, about Rob Walker, the bag man for Hunter Biden. And so Pandora's box is being open. Major shout outs to Dr. Gal Luft for exposing more of the Biden crime family. And of course, we're going to continue to cover this. I'm sure there will be much more to come as Congress continues their work, and we'll continue to follow along here. Thank you for subscribing, my friends. We'll see you on the next one. All right. And so, man, we're going to be praying for that guy. It's going to be a long road ahead on that one. But let's carry on, my friends. We've got a couple more segments on this lovely Friday. While Trump is being prosecuted, while whistleblowers like Gal are being prosecuted, not so much activity of prosecution going on in the White House. The White House still refuses to deny that the Bidens were the possessors of that dime bag, of that cocaine that they found inside the White House. Should be a pretty easy question. Hey, was that Hunter's Coke? No? Okay, next question. Was that Joe's Coke? But they can't answer it for some reason, and it's super painful. We had already heard Andrew Bates, the deputy press secretary. He was on board a Gaggle, which is just audio only, no video here. But Joe Biden was traveling around, and somebody in the press said, hey, can you answer this? Can you just confirm for us? Like, I know we don't know who it belongs to, but like, can we just easily, let's just rule out Joe. Let's just rule out Hunter. Should be a no-brainer, right?
One more, former President Trump has made some pretty wild posts recently on social media. One of them was that the cocaine found in the White House had belonged to either the president or his son. Are you willing to say that that's not the case, that
Easy,
they don't belong to them?
Of course.
I don't have a response to that because we have to be careful about the Hatch Act. What I will say is that I have noticed there does seem to be some increasing frustration coming from that corner in general. And I think it is probably rooted in the contrast between their substantive policy records.
Okay, so this little Gaggle guy, Andrew, he takes it back over to Trump. He says, well, it's probably about Trump. I got to be careful about the Hatch Act. And we talked all about the Hatch Act yesterday, and we're like, how does that apply at all? And you're going to see Karine try to fix that little statement right here. But then she's going to scold the media. She's going to say, how dare you ask us a question like that, which is a very good question. She's going to say that she's already answered it, but you can be the judge. See if she does.
Sorry to bring up cocaine again, but there was a question yesterday during the press gaggle with Andrew Bates that was, I guess, he said that he was avoiding it because of the Hatch Act. I'm just asking again, can you just say once and for all, whether or not the cocaine belonged to the Biden family?
So,
wow, how dare you?
A couple of things there.
Look how irritated she
He
is.
mentioned the Hatch Act because the question was posed to him in using Donald Trump, and so he was trying to be very mindful. Okay, I hear you, but you're asking me a question, so I'm answering it for you. And so that's why he said the Hatch Act. So I would, have you read the transcript and read the transcript fully so you can see exactly what he was trying to say.
Yeah, we know what he said.
That's number one. So we're not avoiding the question. That is not true. We've answered this question, litigated this question for the last 2 days.
You did?
Exhaustively.
You have?
There has been
just say it
some irresponsible reporting about the family, and so I got to call that out here.
Whoa!
And I have been very clear. I was clear 2 days ago when talking about this over and over again as I was being asked a question. As you know, and media outlets reported this, the Biden family was not here. They were not here. They were at Camp David.
Oh.
They were not here Friday.
Oh.
They were not here Saturday.
Oh.
They were not here Sunday. They were not even here Monday.
Oh.
They came back on Tuesday. So to ask that question is actually incredibly irresponsible. and
what?
I'll just leave it there. Okay.
Wow. Whoa, man, she was on a tear on that, huh? Incredibly irresponsible. I'm offended that you even asked it, and they were not even here on Friday, on Saturday, and on Sunday, and on Monday. And you know what we call that here, my friends? That's called pounding the table. Pounding the table. Irresponsible. Crying. Methink the lady doth protest too much. Methinks. And she's very upset about it. And she is irritated that they're even asking her this question. Now, what's so funny about this is she lied to everybody, as per usual. The press didn't like their scolding, the talking to. It's incredibly irresponsible. I can't believe you would do such a thing. Well, it turns out she's a liar. The press is asking her to be accurate. Greg Price, a great follow on Twitter, at Greg_Price11, says, Karine just said that the Bidens were not in the White House on Friday when the cocaine was found, right? She just said that. We just heard it. But according to the White House pool report from Friday, all of them, including Hunter, were actually there. Ooh! Amazing. So she can't even get her dates right. So she gives us that 4-finger litany Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday. Almost forgot him. Almost felt like Karine there. Gosh. But wrong. No, the first one was wrong. Sheesh. So June 30th from Eugene Daniels, It's to the wranglers who are wrangling everybody. The poolers saw Jill Biden, baby Beau, and Hunter Biden climb into the presidential SUV. President Biden followed a few minutes later, motorcade rolling to Fort McNair as of 6:34 p.m. Oh, and that's posted from Eugene Daniels. That email got sent at 6:36 on June 30th. So Karine, Hunter was there. In fact, maybe he stashed it right before he got into the presidential SUV. Huh? Before they took off for the long weekend, man. You can't bring that stuff on the Air Force One or whatever. And she just told us that no, they weren't there. All right, sorry to do it to you, but let's go back through the finger count again. Here we go.
So you can see exactly what he was trying to say. So that's number one. So we're not avoiding the question. That is not true. We've answered this question, litigated this question for the last 2 days exhaustively. You know, there has been some irresponsible reporting about the family. And so I got to call that out here.
Yeah, tell us the facts, Karine. Tell us.
And I have been very clear. I was clear 2 days ago when talking about this over and over again as I was being asked a question.
Yeah.
As you know, and media outlets reported this, the Biden family was not here. They were not here.
Yes,
they were at Camp David. They were not here Friday.
Yes, they were.
They were not here Saturday.
Okay.
They were not here Sunday.
Okay.
They were not even here Monday. They came back on Tuesday. So
Okay.
to ask that question is actually incredibly irresponsible.
Okay, but the Coke was dropped off on Friday and they were there on Friday. So all of those other points don't matter.
And I'll just leave it there.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, nice attempt, Karine. Man, she's getting worse by the day. It's amazing. But this is another report from Fox News, and it says that she has only answered 2% of Biden's scandal questions, which sounds a little high to me, actually. I was like, really? That's 2%? Really? That sounds like a lot. But they did an analysis on it, and they say a new study has found that White House Press Secretary Karine has offered very few direct answers on questions pertaining to scandals. A conservative-leaning media research center, MRC, shout out, analyzed Karine Jean's responses all the way from January 1 to June 30th, covers Biden's classified document scandal and other things. They said analysts found that while reporters asked Jean about 252 questions about either of these topics, only 6 received a definitive answer. Yeah, that sounds like a lot. I don't know. I mean, we've been here all those 6 months, and have we gotten an answer? I mean, I know we don't listen to every single conference, but I mean, have we gotten an answer? I'm not sure. We're going to have to like launch the confetti when we get an answer from her. So shout out to MRC and whoever that poor team was, or that poor staffer who was involved in listening to every single one of these press conferences. Oh my gosh, somebody give that man a raise and a vacation and some nootropics so that we can repair his brain. All right, the study found that Biden's spokeswoman fielded 217 questions and just 2% were concretely answered. Meanwhile, just 1 of 35 questions about the corruption was even addressed. So historic indeed. Karine, a historical person, just waltzing on through the White House. And so to deal with some of these other questions, they also brought out for us Jake Sullivan. And Jake Sullivan is there at the White House, and we're always very familiar with Jake Sullivan. And here is what he said at the White House.
Jake, 5 days after cocaine was found here in the White House, congressional Republicans seem like they're very close to launching some sort of formal investigation. I'm curious, from a national security perspective, A, what was your reaction when the drugs were found? And B, was there any risk to security, either to the president, to your staff, anybody that would work out of the sit room, for this stuff to be so close to where you were?
So first, I would refer to the Secret Service when it comes to questions of the security of the president. I won't speak to that. Second, I would make a point about the Situation Room, because I think there's been a lot of questionable reporting on this. The Situation Room is not in use and has not been in use for months because it is currently under construction. We are using an alternate situation room in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. So the only people coming in and going out of the sit room in this period have been workers who are getting it ready to go. By the way, it's on time and on schedule to be
yeah, don't blame the workers
station
there,
here in the not too distant future. But no, there was no issue with the situation room relative to this. And then finally, look, we have rigorous drug testing policies at the White House. We have rigorous drug use policies here at the White House. We take those extremely seriously.
Yeah, I bet.
So we'll let the investigation unfold. If it involves someone from the White House, the appropriate consequences will ensue. If it involves some visitor who came in and left it, then that's a different matter that raises a different set of questions that are less relevant to my line of work.
Yeah.
So I will leave it at that. But I do not believe at present, as things stand here at the podium today, that we are facing some national security threat, ongoing national security threat.
Yeah, obviously you're not facing a national security threat. I mean, it's cocaine. I mean, if somebody wanted to bring in anthrax and you boneheads can't figure out who brought it in or some other chemical, then maybe, polonium or something, maybe you'd have a difficult time pinning that one down. But this is an interesting conversation. Jake Sullivan doesn't answer many questions, but you can imagine that if you're at the White House and you're an employee, you're a worker there, and you're caught bringing a dime bag of coke in, probably going to be a bad day for you. But my guess is this is not an employee. This is not a worker. If it was, then we probably would have learned about it, would have already had some disposition on it, and it would have been resolved. The reason Jake Sullivan can come out and talk about workers, talk about White House staff, is because it doesn't involve them. They already know who it involves. And if it was a worker, then they would have already offered that up to us. But there isn't a worker. And it might be a visitor that is outside of Jake Sullivan's purview, or it could be a family member, somebody who walks right on by the checkpoints. That's exactly what Dan Bongino's theory is. Dan Bongino, of course, you know him, an infamous conservative podcaster and host found everywhere, former Secret Service agent, knows his way around the White House. This is what he says about this cocaine scandal.
18-acre complex is like a ring surrounding the whole thing. The only way to get in is to go through one of those checkpoints, right? So now you have to ask yourself, well, who could have possibly went through a checkpoint and brought cocaine in? The answer is no one. It's someone who would have bypassed the checkpoints. Well, who bypasses the checkpoints? The Secret Service with the protectees. Biden, the Biden family members, Jill Biden. The Secret Service doesn't go through the checkpoints. They have guns. What the hell are they going to go through the checkpoints for? To detect guns? And they bring the protectees with them. The Secret Service didn't have cocaine on them. So it had to be one of the protectees. There's no other explanation. They would never have gotten through the checkpoint. There's not a chance in hell. They were driven in. Probably one of the family members was likely driven in by the Secret Service who had it on him, found it, and just left it in the White House. It's a simple explanation, man. Occam's
100%. Simplest explanation. Somebody has a bag, they just stash it. They're like, oh man, okay, yeah, we got to get on Marine One, then we're going to get on Air Force One. All right, let's just drop it here. I'll just put it here. Maybe it'll be here when I get back. It's not there when they get back. So Bongino calls it Occam's razor. There's another concept that is called res ipsa loquitur. This is in Latin phrase. It's called the thing speaks for itself. This is a concept in law that applies to tort claims. And a good way to explain this concept called re ipsa loquitur, it's the thing speaks for itself. This is a legal principle that is used. And in the law, the example I was thinking of are car accidents. In a car accident case, the one that we think of, when you bring a claim, let's say you're hit by a car or you hit somebody, we often have to prove who's responsible for the accident. The light was yellow, the light was green, the light was red, or you made a turn, or you cut me off, or whatever, right? We have to prove that. So somebody has to bring the claim. That's one type of a car accident, but I want to explain a different type of a car accident. There's another type of a car accident that's an accident with a car, but it's a little bit different. In Arizona, in Phoenix, we have a car dealership that has a car on the roof. The car is on the roof. And so let's say there's an accident, and the reason they put it up there is because it's different, it's interesting, and it's spinning around, and it shows off the car, And everybody, they have a radio commercial. Just come and look for the car on the roof and all that stuff. So we have this. But what happens now if you're walking down the street and the car falls off the roof and crashes on the ground? That's a car accident, right? But do you have to prove who's responsible for that car accident? Not really. Why? Because the thing speaks for itself, right? Cars are not typically on roofs. And if they are on the roof, they typically don't fall off the roof. If they do fall off the roof, the person who was damaged by the car falling off the roof is generally not going to have to prove that the car shouldn't have fallen off the roof, right? It's the thing speaks for itself. And so when you have a situation where there's a clear case of something that would otherwise be negligence or criminal, in this case, bringing in a dime bag of cocaine into the White House, the thing kind of speaks for itself. Hasn't happened before. We've got all sorts of questions about checkpoints. We've got more security cameras and more forensic testing and more law enforcement horsepower than anywhere in the world, theoretically. And they can't figure this out. It's Occam's razor. It's res ipsa loquitur. It's the thing speaks for itself. We all know what's going on here. And now Congress wants to get to the bottom of it. So Representative James Comer is sending a letter over to the Secret Service, coming from the Committee on Oversight and Accountability. And this is going to turn into something, I think. These people keep stepping in lies. Karine just scolded the press. We'll see if that fires them up or if they just want to be scolded harder, those weirdos. But they can respond back to her and dig into this. And now Congress can dig into this because their stories are not matching up. Oversight says, Dear Secret Service Director, named Kimberly Cheadle. Dear Director Cheadle, the Oversight Committee is investigating the details surrounding the discovery of cocaine in the White House. This alarming development requires the committee to assess the White House security practices and determine whose failures led to the evacuation of the building and the finding of the illegal substance. The committee requests the U.S. Secret Service provide additional info. They say that the presence of illegal drugs in the White House is unacceptable and a shameful moment in the White House history. Whew, man, it is true. Cokehead Joe. According to a senior law enforcement official, the cocaine was found in a storage facility that's, quote, routinely used by the White House staff and guests to store cell phones. According to reports, Secret Service agents discovered a suspicious white powder inside the White House, prompting an evacuation of the White House staff and personnel. The substance has since confirmed to be cocaine. Now, a lot of these things I think are up for debate now. At a storage facility, I think it was like a cubby, in a routine place, I'm not sure about that. A lot of this is dynamic because the White House is lying to us. They say the incident has raised concerns with the committee about the level of security contained at the White House. We'd like a staff-level briefing on this matter no later than next week. Please let us know when we can schedule this. We appreciate your prompt attention to this matter. Sincerely, your friend, James Comer. And so we are very much looking forward to Congress investigating this. We can't have cocaine addicts in the White House. I mean, we already have a demented person. We can't have him on drugs too. So we're going to get to the bottom of it. Congress is going to continue to follow, as are we, my friends. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this wherever you're watching it. And thanks for inviting somebody to join us when we go live. We look forward to seeing you there. All right. And so one final segment on the day. The Biden administration and the censors that live inside want to continue censoring. There's a lot of bad news that they have to deal with. The Biden crime families being exposed. All of their efforts continually fail right out from under them. Doesn't really matter what you're talking about, whether it's domestic or foreign policy. Pick one. But they lost a big case in Missouri versus Biden. The judge in that case, American hero Judge Doty, issued an order that said that the Biden administration can no longer censor Americans. This was being done by exporting the censorship. Agencies like the FBI, the CDC, the DOJ, the White House itself, people in the offices were sending emails to Facebook and to Google. Delete this, delete that. The judge said, you can't do this. We have the First Amendment. There's protected political speech still in this country. And the judge issued an injunction ordering all of those officials, and there were dozens of them, to stop censoring Americans. And guess what? Agencies started complying with the order. The Hill reported that the State Department canceled their censorship meetings with Facebook. The court order came out, and they said, well, I guess we got to follow the terms. After the ruling, Biden administration officials limited communications with social media companies. They should have done that already. The State Department canceled its regular meeting on Wednesday, which it just makes your skin crawl. What is the State Department having meetings for with the Facebook for? National security, or is this to control the narrative over whatever they're working on, which in this case is probably World War III? Those meetings, which had been held monthly, and all future ones were canceled pending further guidance. So it works. The judges can reaffirm adherence to the First Amendment, and the State Department complied. They didn't respond to a request for comment, but they are now appealing this. The censors can't be bothered. They have filed immediately a motion to stay the injunction. So an injunction, as we talk often about here, is a request or an order to do something, to get somebody to take action or to stop somebody from doing a thing. The judge issued an order, stop censoring. They filed a request to stay that order. Excuse me, Judge, we would like to continue censoring. Can we please do that? Here is what they asked. They filed this with the court. It's 2 pages, very brief filing. We'll read the memo later. It's Louisiana and Missouri versus Joe Biden. Here is what the government says. All of these government prosecutors. Signed here by Kyla Snow. They say, for the reasons that we talk about in our other filing, we respectfully request a motion to stay the preliminary injunction. Please allow us to restart our meetings. If the court denies the instant motion, we request an administrative stay to allow time for the Fifth Circuit to consider a motion for a stay and a request for an administrative stay. All right. The judge issued the order. We're still in the Western District of Louisiana. Right now, the judge's order is in effect. They're asking the judge's order to be put on hold. If the judge denies it because the judge reads their rationale and says, sorry, it's not good enough, then they're saying, well, reject our main reason and take reason number 2, which means we're going to ask the Fifth Circuit for a stay. We're going to ask you, lower court, for a stay. If you don't grant it, we ask for a brief stay while we ask the appeals court. So they're going to get 2 cracks at a stay. And one from the lower court, one from the higher level court. So signed off by Kyla Snow. That's the request, and here's the memo. This is their explanation as to why they must continue censoring us, lest we all die. Says, here's the memo. They say, the government censor bureaucrats respectfully request that the court stay its preliminary injunction because we're appealing. They say that the government, us, we face irreparable harm with each day that the injunction remains in effect. Every moment we can't censor people and collude with the big tech companies, irreparable harm, I'm sure. The injunction's broad scope and ambiguous terms, they say, may be read to prevent the government from engaging in a vast range of lawful and responsible conduct that nobody wants you to do. Nobody's asking you to do it. You're doing it because it serves your political party, but it's not in furtherance of the First Amendment. The judge went through all of your litany, and you say that they're lawful and responsible. The judge found that they're not. That's the point. They say, including on speaking of matters of public concern and working with social media companies to prevent grave harm to the American people. The judge's order didn't limit them from doing that. These immediate and ongoing harms to the government outweigh any risk of injuries to the states and we the people. And for the same reason, they say a stay is in the public interest. We have to censor or else it's going to be bad. They say the defendants here, the government, has shown a substantial case saying that the government, the states here, the people, lack standing, and that this court should grant a preliminary injunction. Now, they give us some details on this. You know, they have to consider whether there's irreparable harm. These are all the rules. They say we absolutely will suffer irreparable harm. The court's list of carve-outs injects uncertainty. The court's purported exemption to allow the government to exercise permissible government speech it's at odds with the conclusion that so they're saying we don't understand your interpretation. And so it's going to chill some speech. In other words, it's overly broad, Your Honor. You're going to be, through your confusing wording, you're going to be limiting more stuff that we're allowed to do. We're asking where this line is drawn. The court said, you censored way too much speech, so you got to go back over here. And they said, well, you pushed us too far over here. We should be back here in the middle. So the government says, well, the injunction is not clear as to what entities or individuals are covered. It names entire agencies like the DOJ. And the DOJ is composed of many subcomponents whose actions are not challenged by this case. Do you see this? So they're like, do you mean the entire DOJ? Like, really? Are you sure? Yeah, the entire DOJ, idiots. Yes, the entire FBI, all of it, the whole thing. Not little subcomponents. They say the injunction applies to everybody, but we really have confusion about that. Because it says you're also enjoining the FDA, but you also enjoin the HHS. And it's a small subpart, and so, Your Honor, we're just confused. There's substantial ambiguities here, and that's why we need you to put an injunction in place so we can figure out who is covered and how to comply. So we need to continue censoring while we sort these terms out, which you can imagine it's going to take a while. They say the potential breadth of the entities and the employees covered by your injunction, combined with the substantive scope, is going to chill a wide range of lawful government conduct. Yeah, they're really concerned about chilling the government's conduct, not so concerned about chilling Americans' conduct. It's going to impede on law enforcement responsibilities and obligations to protect national security and the prerogative to speak on matters of public concern. And so we're going to be irreparably harmed by this injunction. And they say the people are not going to be injured. If we keep censoring, there's not going to be irreparable harm for them. Their claims of harm are almost a year old. So all of those claims are just old. And they haven't shown any ongoing evidence of ongoing harm, right? So they're not, in other words, they can't prove that the government is still violating these rights. All of their examples are just old examples, over a year old. These people are so rotten, man. It's gross. Okay, well, they were new when the lawsuit started. And you guys haven't changed anything. In fact, you've been censoring harder. And you want to continue to censor, evident by your own filing here. So they say that the government's going to raise serious legal questions. They're going to challenge Article 3 standing, and they're going to try to get this all dismissed on appeal. And so they say, Your Honor, therefore, this lower level court, the district court, should issue a stay, allow us to go and censor again. If you deny this request, then we at least allow you to issue a stay for 7 days while we ask the appeals court, the Fifth Circuit, to stay there. We request a ruling by Monday, July 10th, so that we can start censoring people, man. We've got a lot of meetings with YouTube and Facebook and now Threads and now Instagram and all of that. Once again, signed by Kyla Snow out of Ohio, attorneys for the government. So another request by the Biden people to censor away. It's the way that they play the game. When they can't succeed in the eyes of the public, they just censor their political opponents. And now they're prosecuting them too. And they've got a lot of stuff to censor. Not looking so good in many different avenues for the Biden crime family. And of course, we'll continue to cover, my friends. And so thank you for liking this video and subscribing wherever it is you're watching. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, we covered some good ground today. The Biden censorship request, we'll see what the judge says on Monday. The White House refusing to take any responsibility or even answer questions about the cocaine scandal. And it really is a cocaine problem one way or another. We had whistleblower, Dr. Gal Luft, absolute amazing story. Seems like a credible figure and somebody who is blowing the whistle and exposing what the DOJ has done. And we also had updates on the Donald Trump prosecution. We know that they're going after him for his crackhead comments, and I think they're going to try to escalate this rapidly. I expect January 6th related indictments any day now. We'll wait and see. But now, my friends, let's see what you have to say about this. Over from our friends on YouTube, on Locals, on Rumble, on Twitter, all across the fruited plain. Who do we have in this beautiful house? And I think we had this one. And I think V's clipping away. Thank you, V. V shared this one from YouTube. And it looks like pickle jars for Hillary. Oh, yeah. Does she have a hard time with those? You know, sometimes they can be a little bit, you know. All right. Pickle Jar says, shocked they haven't called it Barron's Coke yet. Oh, you mean like Trump's son, Barron, yeah. Or Trump's. I was thinking about, you know, it could be Newsom's Coke. Newsom has been in the White House, and if he wanted to take out the Biden crime family, one way to do that would be to just drop some Coke over there, you know? Just one way to do it. And so, thank you for that. Pickle jars for Hillary. We also had Jeff Pearson. Thanks, Jeff. Says, show me the threats. I don't believe them. You mean to the FBI? Right. They keep saying, and to the prosecutors, we're under attack. Trump posted the truth. We're under attack. And then we ask ourselves, are there really any for real? Fred is here, says, I hear, quote, career prosecutors like they are perfect. Career prosecutors. They kind of say that, right? I hear career prosecutors like they're perfect, like they're just without problem. I think they like that label. I'm a career prosecutor. Okay, great. What did you do? You, what? Convicted a bunch of people of some DUIs and drug crimes? Good for you. Salty Sarge is here, says J6 was an inside job for the express purpose of stopping the contesting of the electors, entering the evidence into the congressional record, and formation of the Joint Committee to investigate fraud. I think there's, multiple justifications for it. But I think that was a very useful thing. I remember it. I mean, I was watching Ted Cruz, right, call for that, and then the whole thing just burst into a bunch of problems. And I think that there was a little bit of a setup in where they rejected National Guard. They wanted no security. That would be part of the setup. Then there was the operation, which was to stop exactly what was going on. And then there's the sale, which is the J6 illegally constituted fake select committee hearings, which was to sell it all to us. So they set it up, they did it, and then they sold it to us. Voice of the People, hey, invited 10 membos. Woo, man. Thank you, Voice. So that means our members-only morning stream on our Saturday morning show is going to be lit. Welcome, Angie, Gloria B, Dustin's here, CAM, Tornado Sunflowers joining us, Ipsa Project, Michael M, Danny L, JL, and Jerry M. Coming in, courtesy of Voice of the People, who we see very regularly on our morning streams. Thank you very much, Voice. Very nice to see you. Salty Sarge says, don't tell me One-Eyed W is a co-conspirator. Not the OG, the original Goonie. Illusion shattered from Salty Sarge. I was trying to save us the visual of, that, but maybe it got through. But yes, so the one-eyed man, I believe, is Louis Frey. I don't think that's been officially confirmed, but I think that's what they're telling us. Salty Sarge says, Gal is a mensch. Good to see that he's off the bench. From Salty Sarge in the house. Lovely rhyme. Amazing job. Another one from Salty says, come on, Rob. That dime bag was the doggy bag from the 8-ball that they started with. Have you heard the comms office? No, I haven't heard him, Salty. So they were splitting it up. So somebody's cutting it over there in the comms office. They're all doing lines. I don't know. Maybe that's why Joe Biden looks like that sometimes. His eyes are like, his face is all squeezed back. Voice says, it's not Hunter's because he wasn't there? Where was it exactly? I've read 4 different places. And how can you argue if he left Friday and it was found the next day when I'm sure they don't scour every inch of the White House every day? Well, I think it was found on Friday, wasn't it? So I think it was found on Friday, the same day he was leaving. And so it actually makes sense if you're going to, let's go back to that voice. It actually makes sense if you're going to, like, stash it, right? Like if you've got it in your pocket and you got to get rid of it. Wait, that's not the one. There was another, it was in the Karine segment. So that was down here. Yeah, right here. This one said, we're not at the White House when the cocaine was found. We're in fact there. When it was found. I think it was found on Friday. Let's see. Questions linger. The discovery caused a brief shutdown. Yeah, anyways, I don't know exactly when it was, but I thought it was on a Friday, which means that they were there. Either way, it's like they're leaving, and yeah, her response doesn't answer anything. How can you argue if you left Friday and it was found the next day when I'm not sure they don't scour the White House every day? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the Secret Service does, but it's not a big thing. And their story, you know, the fact that they're lying begs the question, what are they lying about? Why can't they just be truthful about this? Thank you, voice. Third proverb says, drug test their hair, especially her hair. Yeah, she is protesting a lot. Methink the lady doth protest too much. So what is she screaming about? Why are they pounding the table over this thing? All they need to do is just say, no, obviously it's not hunters. It's probably because it is. Jenny B said, hey, Jenny, thanks for being a member for 15 months, baby. Woo! That's a long time. Jenny B, thank you so much for being here for so long. Super cool. We've covered a lot, and we're just getting started. So it says, love your detailed analysis. Patriots in control. We're going to keep fighting onward, Jenny B. Thanks for supporting us all these months. It really is awesome, and it means a lot. Hey, Trust2Kid says, great show, Rob. Here's your 10% for the big guy. All right, who's the big guy in my life? Joey, maybe? Give it to Joey. Thanks, Trust2Kids. Appreciate you. Hey, Salty says, it's okay, Rob. That's where Bill dropped off his pizza and cigar. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. He's making a comment for Isaac. They're talking about cubby holes and vegetable greens for Isaac's wife. For Isaac's wife out there. Shout out to Isaac Bowles and his wife, who loves her vegetables. Jentifer says, Trump called Jack Smith a crackhead. Hey, maybe the bag of blow belongs to Jack. You never know. Maybe Trump knows something. Crackhead Jack has a good ring to it. Crackhead Jack. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Crackhead Jack has a good ring to it. I like it, Jentifer. And hey, thanks for being a member over on Rumble. How cool is that? Hey, Chris Christie said this too. Chris Christie is a longtime prosecutor, a lot of experience. He says you can't really tell the difference between a crackhead and a crackhead. Some crackheads are on the streets. Some crackheads are in, high-rise buildings. You never know. You never can tell. Maybe some are, the first son in a White House, and others are in the special counsel's office. You can't tell. So it's a great comment, Jentifer. Thanks for being here. Hey, Patricia Watts became a supporter on YouTube. Amazing, Patricia. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to join us tomorrow. We do members-only streams on Saturday, and it's a lot of fun. It's in the morning, so we hope to see you there. Salty Sarge says, by hook or by crook, the deep state is going to usher Joe and his family out. It feels a little bit like that. It feels like the table's maybe turning, like the energy shift is moving. And like Newsom is warming up in the bullpen. I can almost feel it. Norman is here, says, thanks for the information and analysis, sir. Well, thank you, Norman. Thank you, Norman, for being here, my friend. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and hopefully you return. Hopefully you join us for much more. And thanks for the tip, brother. Scooter McDuder is in the house. What's up, Scooter? Says, it's a cackling Kamala's Coke. They did say it was by where she parked. Remember that? Kamala parks over there. Probably her Coke. But we don't know where the Secret Service is investigating. but it might be Kamala's. Bev is here. What's up, Bev? Hey, Bev, thank you for the dono. No question on that. Bev C in the house. Been a member, looks like, for a long time, Bev. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you being here. No question, but the very first super chat from Bev C. Thank you very much, Bev, for being here. Another one from Jason came in. Jason on Locals says, we have to win this political contest so we can write the truth about the history Democrats are making. Man, that's a good comment. Yeah, because the victors write the history, right? And the Democrats have been winning, and they've been crafting the narrative, and the big lie and my stolen election. They keep saying that. What's interesting about that, though, is they're trying to write the story, but I don't think people are reading it. Or they're reading it, but they're not believing it. And that's because the truth is hard to fake. They keep claiming they have a mantle on truth. Trust the science. Do everything that we say. But they're incompetent, and they fail regularly. Danny McWilliams on Twitter says, nothing will change unless Trump wins. Deplorable says, how do you follow precedent if there is no precedent? No reasonable prosecutor. Yeah, until a reasonable prosecutor indicts. That's right. I mean, there's always no precedent, right? Almost every case is, there's precedent for it, but every case is unique, really. And you use some cases precedent, but precedents are broken, and there's always new and novel things that are done. Jeff Bishop says, hopefully the Green Lantern is on our side and not a sign that the lizard has taken over. Apparently there's a green lamp over at the White House. Brian says, in a nutshell, this is the testimony of Dr. Luft. DOJ mole is a one-eye. At the behest of the Biden, obtained classified info, use Hunter to sell to the CCP, millions that they laundered. Brian says, clear treason, clear and unambiguous. Jeff says the prosecutors and the powers that be in Washington definitely reinforce the basic idea that when given power, the smaller the person, the bigger the tyrant. Good one from Jeff. Lil Nugget says, thanks for keeping us informed. I watch you on YouTube every day because I get less distracted. That's a good call. Yeah, Twitter's distracting. Believe me, for me too. I'm like, all right. I'm like, I get on here and do some show prep. And then I'm like reading about, whatever. Maid says, if the prosecutors had a solid case, it wouldn't be sealed. Another good point there. I think Vientikis has this one from Patrick Ho. Patrick Ho? I don't know what that means. I think that's from that C show. V says, official history is written by the winners. Actual history is often whispered by the survivors. All right, so my friends, some very good comments from our friends over on Twitter. Very good stuff. And we're not done yet. We are going over to our members only after party, heading on over to Locals, and we would love to see you there. The web address is watchingthewatchers.locals.com on this lovely, lovely Friday. And if you haven't joined as a member already, we'd love to see you. We do members only morning streams, even here during the week. So if you join up on YouTube, just click that join button next to the subscribe button, and you can join us. We do members only morning docket coverage. We talk about what's on Joe's schedule, the congressional schedule, what's happening in the Trump cases, and other stories that we don't have time to attend to here. So come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, a great community as well. We have a lot of fun. Also, don't forget to grab your Field of Greens, courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. It's real organic superfood, and the vegetables want to be eaten, man. And it tastes good, really going down. And if you read the ingredients, you'll see lots of good stuff in there. So try it out, see what you think, and save 15% off with code Robert. You can also grab this Mindmap software. I get a lot of questions and emails about this and how it works. If you'd like to sign up for a free account, check out spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap, where you can sign up and check it out at your leisure. Big thanks to the mods and the meme smiths who keep this train on the track. Very appreciative to all the help. And V clips away today, and all the other mods are helping throughout the week. We're just grateful. We have such an awesome team to keep things nice and tidy. Big thanks to Vientikis, our friend K Bean, Just Cause in the House, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Beyond Geostars, Zach Nichols, our friend John Allen, Janek909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, along with Geegum Geegum, Sleepy Dogly, and our friend Nathan N810, all in the house. Thanks everybody for helping keep this show nice and orderly. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Had a beautiful week with you. We covered a ton of ground, but we'll be back next week to do it all again. And so over this lovely weekend, hopefully you're staying cool and unplugging from politics. We love to get outside, get back in touch with nature, spend time with friends and family, recharge our energy so that we can come back here on Monday and do it all again, baby. And so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful weekend, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.